On January 1st, the European Union could punish a Middle East country with economic sanctions. No, it's not over nuclear weapons in Iran. The EU target is Israel. Chris Mitchell reports from Brussels, Belgium.
New economic guidelines would prohibit money from the EU to Israeli communities beyond what's called the Green Line, also known as the West Bank. In order to receive funding, private Israeli entities must prove they have no ties to the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and East Jerusalem. The economic impact could run into the millions. Some believe the move is part of a growing anti-Semitism moving across Europe. Those new EU guidelines are being established here in Brussels, Belgium, at the European Parliament. They represent a major economic challenge to Israel and could predetermine the borders of a future Palestinian state.
And these guidelines that basically restrict any type of cooperation, financial cooperation between Europe and these disputed territories. And it's more complicated than you would think, because even if you would have one particular university wanting to engage in a multi-million program with the EU, if you happen to have one professor living, say, in East Jerusalem, it would be impossible with these new guidelines.
Andrew Tucker of Christians for Israel International says the guidelines put Europe in the position of creating a Jew-free state.
But I think the thing that concerns us most is the signal that it's giving. And we're concerned that Europe is on a slippery slope towards enforcing the creation of a Palestinian state. And it will be a Palestinian state where Jews will not be welcome.
Tucker and others feel this slippery slope would pressure Israel to create a future Palestinian state based on the so-called 1967 borders, divide Jerusalem, and make it illegal for Jews to live there.
There's nothing in the guidelines to say that Jews are not allowed to live in a new Palestinian state, but we would see it as part of a broader project whereby Europe is saying all Israeli settlements are illegal, which means any Jew living in so-called Eastern Jerusalem, and you know better than I do, you know this is the heart of Jewish Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, is illegal. Once you buy into that, then it's a question of implementing administrative steps to make it a reality, and the guidelines is just one example.
Israel and the EU did sign an economic agreement recently called Horizon 2020, but the financial restrictions remain in place for the disputed territories. Israel's representative to the EU feels that hurts both Israelis and Palestinians.
At the end of the day, if we are talking about the territories behind the 67 borders, it means also that settlements, but also Palestinians living around these settlements are not going to benefit from these grants.
It reminds Sandel of the anti-Semitism spawned in Europe during the 1930s.
For me, this is anti-Semitism 2.0. It's more sophisticated, but it's very effective in terms of demonizing Jews, demonizing the Jewish state, and making life very difficult for those in particular who would want to live in these disputed territories. I know many people will be upset by hearing me stating this, but I do see similarities. Then they simply said, don't buy from Jews. Today it's boycott Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the European Parliament, Brussels, Belgium.